The records show that a quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We did not have anybody sign up to speak today, so we will move right into our reports. First up, we have operations report, quarterly demographic and housing analysis. Mr. Templeton.
Good evening, Board President, members of the board, Dr. Chadwell. It is my pleasure to be with you tonight. And this is the third quarter report. Overall, I can say we're seeing some, overall really good news in terms of what we're seeing locally in the housing market. I'll start by just touching on the enrollment trends. You'll notice this year's enrollment as of October was around 23,451. That number is literally changing every week. We're still seeing pretty significant growth that's happening throughout the week. I expect this will continue throughout the year, especially at the elementary grade levels. We tend to see elementaries grow through the springtime. Secondary numbers will tend to peak at about the mid-year break or the Christmas break. But overall, relatively good numbers. We're a little bit short on the projections, the enrollment compared to the projections, but we're seeing record-breaking new home activity. In fact, the third quarter was the highest start number that we've ever seen in the district, the most starts in one quarter, over 600 starts. We also had a record-breaking number of closings in the third quarter. So we're seeing, not like we're seeing with the rest of the Metroplex, specifically in Eagle Mountain, Saginaw, we're seeing a real surge. I think it's the factor that, when the pandemic started, we were short of lots. We had a shortage of supply of lots, so we couldn't really ramp up like many of the other districts did during that housing surge. Whereas we've gotten lots delivered, now the builders are building, and so we're seeing it kind of peak right now. Overall, the economic conditions are relatively good. The unemployment rate is around 4%. Anytime you get near 4%, you're basically fully employed. I'd say we have seen some settling in the labor force, so we're not seeing as much turnover, resignation. The great resignation period has pretty much ended, so a lot of folks have landed in their jobs. The DFW area is fortunate because we are still seeing job growth. So that is still going to be driving population growth to the region. As I mentioned, the housing market has been very unusual during the last several years. This is the total annual start rate for the DFW region, which is the purple line. The turquoise line is the annualized closing rate for single family homes. When the pandemic started, we saw the acceleration in the purple line. It peaked at around 55,000 was the annual start rate, the purple line. Well, then the Fed started raising the interest rates to slow down inflation. It did slow down starts. You can see it bottomed out actually 2 quarters ago. And in the third quarter, we turned the corner and now the start rate headed back up. We had 43,520 is the annualized start rate. I suspect it's going to stay in that 40 to 45,000 range. It's not going to shoot back up to 50,000. And so we're likely going to see the interest rates stay in that 6.5–7% range through 24. At least that's what our economists believe, the Zonda economist. 25 could be when we start to see the interest rates move back down just a little bit. Don't expect them to get down to 3% unless something really challenging is happening to where they really feel like they've got to put the gas back on the housing market. So we'll see how that plays out. This is kind of a change. This is a map that's showing the red areas are the hot areas that are seeing the change in year-over-year starts from a year ago. You can see the Eagle Mountain Saginaw area is this area right in here at 35 and 287. That's definitely one of the hot spots. So we've seen some significant increase year over year. It goes up I-35 into Denton, and it goes along the 380 corridor in McKinney, Prosper, that part of Denton as well. On the multifamily side, this is the multifamily picture for the DFW region. The blue bar represents the occupancy rates. The kind of green line and the gold line are the market rent rates and the effective rent rates. And we're seeing the occupancies really drop low. They're down to some of the lowest levels that we've seen in a long time, down below 90%. The main reason they're dropping so low is because we've added so many units across the Metroplex. They've added over 32,000 multifamily units, and we still have a lot of multifamily under construction. So it's still that market it's becoming a renter's market. So the rent rates, as you can see, are kind of holding, and occupancies are down. We're seeing more and more apartments that are offering concessions. We're also seeing more and more of the single family for rent product, which fits into this category because it's rental, but it's really looks more like a single family neighborhood. We've got some of that going on in the Eagle Mountain Saginaw School District, and it is a product that we're seeing really expanding in just about all of our clients.
So would you be counting those in this graph?
They are in this category, yes.
An apartment?
They're not in your single family data, they're in the multifamily data.
And then while we're watching this, is the rent, does the rent tell us something about our district when we're tracking the effective in the market?
Well, this is just kind of big picture. So big picture is, we're seeing a softening in the cost. So the rent rates are not climbing like they did during the height of the pandemic, which made it really problematic for renters. So now the market has kind of softened and it's not as expensive. The rent rates are stabilizing, and more apartments are offering concessions to try to lure in those renters to get those occupancies up. But we are tracking projects in your district. So I think we could be seeing where, it's going to become a little more softer. I hate to say more affordable. It's still expensive, but it's softening to where we could see the occupancy stay low even in the Eagle Mountain Saginaw School.
So that was going to be my question. Softening like prices are going down, or softening
They're not
like
accelerating.
going up, not accelerating?
You can see on this graph, they've kind of stayed relatively flat, but we're still adding units. So I think it's going to stay flat, and it could soften and go slightly down just a little bit.
And this is big picture, but would it apply to our particular district?
I think it does apply in terms of what's happening with the rent rates. The occupancies it may be a little harder for those apartments to fill them up fast, so they may not get absorbed as quickly. With that said, the single family for rent, while it's in this category, they are very popular, and they tend to fill up faster because it's a lifestyle choice. These are the single family for rent are for folks that want a single family home, but they don't want a 30-year mortgage, and they don't want to be locked into a location for a long period of time.
Is the yield per kid the same, per student the same?
It's not as high as the traditional single family, but it's higher than the normal multifamily. So it's kind of in between. It's in that 0.2 to 0.3 range, where a single family is going to be yielding 0.5 to 0.7. A garden style multifamily will yield in the 0.15 to 0.2 range.
Okay, thank you.
Here's where you rank in the DFW Metroplex based on annual closings. One thing that's, like I said, a little different about this is that your start rate is bigger than your closing rate. So you're ranked 6th based on the annual closing rate of 1,823, but your start rate is over 2,100. Most of the districts in this graph are starting less homes than they're closing. So they are kind of going in the opposite direction, whereas you're moving back up into that near 2,000 range is where I suspect you're going to be closing more than 2,000 homes when we get to the fourth quarter numbers for 2023. As I mentioned, we had a record-breaking number of starts in the third quarter. We started 632. That's, the highest number that we've got recorded for your school district. You closed 681 homes in the third quarter. Again, both those were records, record starts and record closings. I do think for 23, we're going to see a little over 2,000 homes closed when we get to the end of 23.
But if we're going with a half a student per, that range, why are we only growing by 300 students?
Well, part of this is the lag of when these homes are getting closed. I think we're going to see a surge of growth in this school year because of the homes that are just now being closed.
Okay.
It's also a function of the kindergarten class versus the 12th grade class. So there's some mobility factors that at play. But yes, you should be growing. If all things were measured the same, if you're growing 2,000 kids a year or 2,000 homes a year, you should be growing, easily in that 700 to 800 student range.
But you think the majority of the difference between what we forecasted in this is this
It's the
closing
lag.
being delayed, the lag of the
I'm going to
closings?
call it the lag in those homes not getting finished. The thing we're still struggling with in the new home construction is we're still not building homes as fast as we were prior to the pandemic. There is still some labor challenges in the construction market. There's still some supply chain issues related to some components of construction. It's different by region. And so, but it's taking a little bit longer to get those homes closed and finished. There's also then this, the builders are using incentives, discounts, buying down interest rates. So they're having to do things to try to, close the deal. And so some of that's causing a little bit of a lag, which we see an increase in inventory. We now have an inventory of new finished vacant homes that didn't exist 2 years ago. 2 years ago, there was no inventory of new homes. Now there is. And that's very helpful for families that are moving to a region because the existing supply of existing homes on the market is also really low. It's low for a different reason. It's low because a majority of the homeowners that have mortgages have loans in that 3 to 4% range because they took advantage of those really low interest rates. Some of them refinanced. They bought homes during that period. Now that the interest rates are up over 6, close to 7%, they don't want to sell and move to a bigger or different home because the financing is so much higher. So that's causing a shortage of supply of existing homes. So therefore, when families are moving to the region because of a job change or a family change, the new home piece of the market has grown and has made up a bigger share of that. This is breaking down that data by your elementary zones. Again, Hatley, the #1 zone for the most single-family construction, about 569 annual starts. The second highest area is the Bryson zone, 456. Comanche Springs, 379. Eagle Mountain Elementary, 264. Very strong activity in about 5 of your elementary zones. So again, we will see strong growth, especially at the elementary schools during this school year. Here's the map to show you that activity. The green shaded areas are the active subdivisions. We have 32 actively building subdivisions. We have 12 future subdivisions. The developers have not slowed down. So we've not seen any slowdown in developers. There's currently groundwork underway on 2,550 lots that will be delivered within the next 6 to 12 months. So developers are still going very strong. On the multifamily side, the purple shaded areas are the multifamily projects that are under construction. The turquoise shaded areas are the planned or future multifamily areas. You can see that kind of long, skinny one in the Lake Country zone. That is single family for rent. So it's a single family for rent project there. And we've got more of a traditional multifamily over in the Hatley Elementary zone. There's also some multifamily that's kind of covered up by the Willow Creek label. So there's a purple project under construction there under the creek portion of the Willow Creek label. We've got about 2,290 multifamily units in the planning stages. We've got about 663 multifamily units that are in the construction. That 120 units of senior living, I think that's the one that's underneath that creek label. That's the one that's a senior. So, some of the highlights, I'm going to touch just on a couple. The ranch.
Back to the,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I had a question on that.
Yes.
When you're talking about the 2,550 lots in 12 subdivisions, is the up in the Bonds Ranch, the yellow in that corridor, is that included in that, the number of lots in that Rio Claro?
The
included
future
in that?
single family for Bonds Ranch, I don't recall the total number of futures there, but there is still a large number of futures.
That's why I was wondering if that was included in there, because that's one developer. Obviously, it's a significant number to the district, and they have slowed down.
Mhm.
Meaning they hit pause for a while due to costs. And so I just know that that's a big factor, that when they get going, it's going to be significant.
Is it the one behind Boston Lodge that runs to the new high school?
No, it's different development than that one. So that's where I didn't know on that 2,550 if that was included in that, because if it's not, then if they tick that off, it could be.
It is not in that. The 2550 does not include the Bonds Ranch
Okay.
stuff. Where you see the red outlines, those are the areas where the underdevelopment is taking place.
Gotcha, I got the groundwork.
So some of the highlights, the ranch at Duck Creek, which is in the Bryson Elementary Zone, they've got 18 homes under construction, 51 in inventory. So 51 finished vacant model homes in that 51. There's 42 vacant developed lots. There's 194 futures that are getting real close to being delivered. So they've got activity under development in the ranch at Duck Creek. That satellite image is from November the 4th. You can also see a portion of the landing at Creekside. That's 205 total homes. The groundwork is underway. These are 50-foot lots, so likely be a more affordable housing product in the landing at Creekside. Eagle Mountain, the Talon Hills, it's 391 total homes, 8 homes under construction with 8 in inventory, 37 vacant developed lots, 116 futures. This is Graham Hart Homes is one of the builders there. It's 316,000 is kind of the starting point, goes up to over 550,000. The yield right now in this neighborhood is about 0.36 students per home in the Talon Hills.
I circled that just to circle back to what you said we were using as a district standard, you know.
Well, that's an average yield, the 0.5. There's definitely some that are less and some that are a little higher. We run the yields every year, so we do have a table for every subdivision that, you know, is very specific. They also change every year. So that yield is a moving target from year to year based on, you know, as they age and the elementaries will grow big for a while and then they'll move up into the middles and ultimately the high schools. But that's just roughly an average or a general rule of what the average across the district would be at around 0.5.
Okay.
Now, we use the birth rate data to help us with the projections. You can see this year, the ratio between the district's birth in 2018 compared to the kindergarten enrollment in 2023 was right at 1. So we had about 1,500 births in the year 2018, which turned into about 1,500 kindergarten kids in 2023. I'm kind of bouncing it around and being a little conservative over the next 4 years. You can see it's been less than 1, but then historically it's kind of bounced around as well. So I'd say the reality is it's going to be somewhere in that range between 0.95 to 0.1 is where it will likely land, because when we look back historically, that's basically where it's been. Here's a look at the projections going forward. We do have you growing at about 2.8%, 24,100 students next year. And in 5 years, the enrollment could be at about 26,740 students. Again, this is 600 to 700 students of growth per year. It's a combination of the 12th grade versus the kindergarten. You can see the 12th grade's a little bigger than the kindergarten class. So then therefore, even though we're adding in that, 800 students a year, we're mobility wise, we're losing some at the top end, not losing, you're graduating more than what's coming in at the bottom. So all that comes together to produce these projections. At your elementary campuses, of course, Lake Point Elementary is right at capacity. You can see then we're going to be approaching capacity on multiple elementary schools in about 3 years. We've got Copper Creek, which will be right at 763 students by 2026. Eagle Mountain Elementary could be over 700 students in 2026. We've got Lake Country, which will be approaching its capacity in about 2027. And then Lake Point also, it's going to be approaching capacity this next year. Bottom line is we're going to be topping 12,000 students in your elementary campuses in 5 years. At the secondary level, it is Wayside Middle School. That is your largest middle school. It'll be at about 1,109 students next fall. It'll be at about 1,257 students in 3 years. At your high schools, it's Boswell High School that's approaching capacity the fastest. And then you can see Chisholm Trail will be approaching capacity in about 4 years. We're opening the new high school, and it'll open with approximately 723 students. Key takeaways, this year we saw about 358 students of growth this year. Despite the higher interest rates, we're seeing a surge in housing, and that is going to lead to some steady growth during the school year. We're still seeing very strong development activity. We've got over 2,500 lots that are in development across the district. We believe easily you're going to be forecasting to add about 1,500 to 2,000 homes per year. I'm hedging a little bit because I want to see what happens in the first quarter. I want to see what happens when we get into 2024. There's the rumor for another little interest rate hike, but they think that could be the last of the interest rate hike, so we could be near the top of that. The district's enrollment is scheduled to increase by about 3,300 students in 5 years. We do expect you're going to exceed 30,000 students in 10 years. I'd be happy to answer any questions. All in all, it feels good to me in terms of what's happening, what I'm seeing with the housing market. It's kind of an odd time for sure because of overall there is some concerns with headwinds because of the higher interest rates. When I'm asked what could really change the narrative here, if we were to see the interest rates go down significantly, that's really going to fuel it for the younger buyers. Relocation buyers that are moving here because of a job change, they're kind of forced to look to buy. So the market that's here, that's kind of sitting on the sidelines because of the higher interest rates, that could fire them back into the market should those interest rates get back down to that 5% range. 5% from our surveys, Zonda big company, is really where a lot of the buyers feel more comfortable buying is if they can get to a 5% interest rate. Well, if you think of any questions, don't hesitate to send them on to Cleet. Be happy to respond at any time, and hope you get to have a great Christmas break.
Thank you. You too. All right. Next up, we have a construction update. Mr. Welch.
Good afternoon. So Eagle Mountain High School, we're in December, so by the end of December, we're looking at roughly right at 82% completion. So every month is roughly 4% on that. So we're looking around May 1st in there as far as getting to that point. So we feel like we're on schedule on that, and a lot of things are going on. The first picture you have just the north view looking at the front of the building. Kind of the takeaways, you see the darker dirt, that's a finished grade landscaping. So you're going to see more of that around the campus. Notice around the fine arts area, which is on the left side, you now have that. You can see the concrete's a little bit different color. That was poured over Thanksgiving. We'll get a better view of it. And also on the far right side, the academic wing on the west side, the lecture hall area is getting buttoned up over there. This is from the south looking north, so that's the gym, the pink gym. So they've started, obviously the roof's on there from last month. And you have the little connector there where they've got the metal down for that. And you can see the completion of that road I was talking about as it circles around the gym. Just looking east, you see the pond, and again, kind of talking about that academic area on the west side. They're putting in those windows and just buttoning up the back, and you're going to see some close-up pictures here in a minute of the brick and rock work in that area. Looking at the stadium, so this is probably a good view of catching everything about it. The big part I wanted to show you this is just the field house area, how the sides were open on the turf room area. Now that's been closed in. You see a lot of the masonry rock work. The buildings for the restrooms, concessions on the home side, they're starting to get ready for rock and brick on those. The press box still progresses, and you can see the outline of where the turf would be located, and you can see where they've done where the track's going to be located also. And another thing, if you drive by the stadium on the home side, you start to see the bleachers, and you can see the difference in that. Pretty dramatic. Now some close-up views. First one on the right is just, that's the Fine Arts area, Performing Arts Center. You got the glazing, the fascia metal, stone, brick veneer. The brick veneer on the left picture, you see that, that's when you walk into it. And then always about 3 months ago, you could see the stairwell. I showed you a picture of the stairwells. Well, that's one side of them on the far right of the picture, and how you enter in that area to go upstairs. This is probably really dramatic as far as the inside. The middle picture there is, obviously, that's the cloud ceiling. So you see all that scaffolding. Well, they've torn down the middle part of the scaffolding. That was all the way across the whole Performing Arts Center, and they built a floor, if you will, so they could work on all that. Everything above the ceiling. And, you see the pretty wood and everything, but you've got your lighting, all your wiring, you've got your fire suppression. See, all those things were done with that being completed. Now that they've finished that, they're moving on down. I asked Dr. Chadwell to go up there and look at it, so it was a kind of
It's fun.
it's just fun. I mean, it's just, how
Didn't look
many
down.
times you get up there and get to look at that?
I said I didn't look down.
No.
They'll have a walkway up there though, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, somewhere up
Yeah.
catwalk.
Yeah, they're in the kind of the black areas. Those are the walkways. So you can do that, but to be able to be underneath it looking up is kind of the view you never really get unless you're changing a light.
The design of this facility is very, very similar to Chisholm Trail with a few differences of like when you come in. In this building, you come in on the outside, whereas at Chisholm Trail, it's more in the center. But all of this infrastructure is very similar with catwalks and similar locations and everything. We really like the design of that school, and like the acoustics in that building are very good, and also the accessibility of the equipment via the walkways. So we're impressed with it.
And we like the colors.
That's
It's very similar color to Chisholm Trail. So, let's see, on the left side, just got some, that's the drama classroom. You see some of the rigging there. On the right picture, that's from the stage looking up, and all that support system. You see the grid where you walk on and where they are working up in that area. Going to the cafeteria, they show the tile in the kitchen. You got the flooring down, kind of finished work. You start seeing some of that on the ceiling part of it, how that's coming together. The middle picture is just the broad looking, that's looking west. So as you're coming to the cafeteria as a student, that's what you'd be viewing, that looking into the serving lines on the left. And just an inside picture on the bottom right of the main gym. And of course, it's got a little water in there, but they'll get the windows in and they'll start sealing all that up. They've been working on the roof, and that is ongoing in that area.
See your low spots.
Inside, I kind of mentioned that a couple times about the lecture hall. So this is the interior of the lecture hall, and they're working on that rock veneer, and it's located, you can see that down there below the scaffolding. So that is progressing in that area to finish that up. And got a few more pictures here. This one on the top left, that's just another picture of the lecture hall and how that's being, you see the glazing. Then they've got to finish some of the stone and masonry. And then the one on the bottom, I was mentioning, that's by the pond. So you can see how the stone, the outline of the windows and the brick colors all tie together. And just on the right, just another picture of the academic area in the front.
Expect the pond to stay that same size, and is that what the pond's gonna look like?
Yeah, but it'll be a lot, the water level will be a lot higher. That's just natural. It's holding water, but by design, that's just runoff water that is captured, but we've not pumped any water into it at this point.
Can you move that over to 4 and 6 at the resort? Whatever
Yeah.
technique you use there.
Yeah, so they did a good job lining that, and so it's proven its worth that it's holding water for sure.
Just a reminder, we're using that for irrigation as well. We'll be pumping some water in, but we'll be pumping water out for irrigation. So all that, especially this time of the year, that would be pretty helpful.
Just a close-up of the Sky Bridge, looking from the ground level where the dry creek bed, but look it up, you can see they're putting up some of the soffit panels, and there's some work on the close-up of the press box. In fact, they finished all that glazing as of when I drove by earlier. So again, that's progressing. And that's all the pictures and update I have. Got any questions? It's moving right along. It's on schedule.
Is the outside landscaping gonna be similar to the admin building or Boswell's, or what kind of landscaping do we have?
It's a combination of, well, the majority of it's just 419 turf. And then your perimeter outside, you know, it would look something, it'd be wild. The park,
Natural, we're using natural landscaping again.
now outside where no one goes. Where there's no buildings, there's just runoff. I mean, there are natural plants that can survive, but it's, like I said, the majority of it's turf.
We did make an adjustment to the landscaping plan after design and incorporated more grass into it in the space.
Any questions? Thank you. All right, let's move on to education services. We have a 24-25 school calendar proposal. Ms. Sanders.
Dr. Chadwell, President Ring, and Board of Trustees, thank you for having me this evening to present to you the proposed calendar for the 24-25 school year. We started in October preparing an initial draft and getting feedback from our DPAC committee, which includes our parents and community members and staff, as well as our leadership team who took back the thoughts on the calendar and brought back input from each of their respective departments. And so we have a draft to share with you this evening, which includes the some common things that we see with our calendar every year. A week at Thanksgiving, 2 weeks at Christmas, and a week at spring break. There are also some adjustments that we make based on how a calendar falls. For example, our Easter break fell much later in 2025 than it does in 2024. So that adjusts some of the days that we have and our instructional grading periods. And so I'm presenting to you that draft, and if you have any questions, I can answer them for you at this time.
Any questions? Doesn't look like there are any. Thank you. All right, next up we have Aspire 2029 progress report. Dr. Burns.
Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to be able to present to you. We are now in the midst of developing our Aspire 2029 strategic plan. We focus everything on our mission, while also our belief statements are leading our work, and our desired outcome is always going to be the profile of an EMS ISD graduate. With Aspire 2029, we already have the vision of the district, and that was what was worked very diligently on with the first Aspire and with the second Aspire. So what you're going to find is that we will continue with the pillars, the 3 pillars, and the topics underneath. If the committee feels that there needs to be any type of an addition or change, that would be where we would bring that open to all the stakeholders within that committee. But what made me the most excited was our first group of stakeholders were our student voice. And they did an absolutely fantastic job. And you can see some of their work that we did the nominal voting process. And they did such a great job with being able to take what the goal is, what the pillar is, and determine what do they like, what do they not like. And a perfect example would be is I had a 4th grader approach me and say, I think I know what teachers would make them happy, and that they would be able to have a certain number of kids in their classroom and they can decide the kids. And I said, oh, well, what if a teacher wants 100+ students, but they only have room for this amount? And the 4th grader went, well, I didn't think about that. So he had to go back to his table and rework through some things, and they just did an amazing, absolutely amazing job. And so what we are working with concerning our student voice and also our stakeholders within the committee is, once again, your pillars are going to remain the same, But what we are looking at, the committee will be reviewing goals. What is it that they want to see under each pillar? What does it look like? What should it not look like? What are some different ideas? And then they will also be focusing very strongly on our performance objectives. How will we know that we are achieving this goal? And then what you see in purple is what the executive senior leadership then will do is then they will take, once the stakeholders, the committee determine what goals they want and performance objectives, then the district leadership will take that and then actually determine what are specific action steps that we need to take to make sure that we are achieving what our strategic planning committee is requesting. So in January and February, once again, our stakeholders with our strategic planning committee will be working, focusing on the goals and the performance objectives. In March, the executive directors will meet with their departments to work on the strategies for each of the goals and the performance objectives. In May, we will come all together to review the final document and, of course, provide a huge thank you to the committee because they are putting in a lot of hours and work into this. And then our hope is to bring it and present it to our board in the May month. And that is it. Any questions?
Is the bow tie required? I see Luke Vincent
Yes.
here in a bow tie. Is that
Yes.
something you require? Or?
Yes. He reached out and specifically asked me if it was okay if he did not wear the Student Voice shirt because he had requested his mother go buy him a new suit. And I said, absolutely, please do not wear the Student Voice shirt. You may wear your bow tie.
He's a snappy dresser. That's good. Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to finance report, Mr. Welch.
Good evening, President Ring, trustees, Dr. Chadwell. From the finance office, we do have one report tonight. Each year, we take a look at the relationship of our property values compared to our outstanding bond value levels. While this is not an exact replication, it is a good indicator of the item 12 in our School First rating. That looks at all of our long-term liabilities compared to our assessed property values. As a fast growth district, it is important for us to monitor and predict where we're going to fall out on that indicator while we deal with the necessity of issuing debt in order to meet the growth requirements. In this comparison, we show the history going back to 2015. You can see there that our ratio was 8.36%. In recent years, as you look at the lines for 2021 and 2022, we issued authorized bonds available to lock in those very low interest rates at that time for some taxpayer savings. In 2023, we did not issue additional bonds. As you can see here over here in the new monies issued bonds column there for 2023. It is listed as estimated as these numbers will finalize in the coming months. But at this time, you can see right now we're sitting at 7.6% with these projections, which is a good number and a good trend. You'll notice that the TAVs in 2023 reflect the increase in the state homestead exemption from going from $25,000 to $40,000. And then we did the same thing in 2024. We're reflecting the increase in the state homestead exemption from $40,000 to $100,000 as was recently approved by voters. And so when you look at those numbers and you look at there is an adjustment in what will happen with the ratio a little bit there. With an 8% growth model on our TAVs and projected new issuances of about $200 million coming this summer, and then potentially another $100 million for the following summer in order to fund our 2023 bond projects, you can see our ratios are holding about that 8% level. We got 8.18% for 2024 and 8.04% in 2025. And just so that, based on those current projections, I do anticipate that the district will maintain that same level on the indicator 12 on the school first report, sitting there at 6 points of the total 10 points. I don't think that number will change. I think we're going to hold that looking into the next couple of years based on where we're at, what we're looking for cash flows. So if there's any questions on this report, I'd be happy to answer those.
Questions? I guess we don't have very many questions this evening.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
We will move on to Human Resources Report. Mr. Mogan.
Good evening, President Ring, members of the board, and Dr. Chadwell. I have a report for you all this evening for the Eagle Mountain High School staffing proposal. Last month, you may recall that I brought to you a report for administrators and counselors, and this is the next in the line of reports for staffing for the new high school opening up next fall. And this one's specific to athletics and fine arts. This is for head coaches and assistant coaches and a fine arts position. This has got 30 positions, you'll note, with the projected amount for the FTEs and also the stipends. And then we'll also be bringing, just to further the overview, early next semester, we'll be bringing the teachers, special ed teachers as well, classroom teachers, and the rest of the fine arts. But for this particular report, it's the coaches, the athletics, and the assistants, so we can get a jump on if approved. We'll bring this back in January for your consideration and let the campus principal and the head athletic coordinator and head football coach get a jump on those positions if it's approved next month. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions again? Thank you. Are you?
Yeah, I do. My only question on some of these, so this is basically kind of the units of what those jobs are. But the athletic coordinator, head coach and stuff like that would be able to, I mean, it's not necessarily locked into which second sport they're going to coach or anything as listed here, or is it?
So this is the proposal in working with Mr. Behringer and then working with the athletics department. So there probably is some flexibility to move some things around. This is based on kind of the model that we've had with the other schools.
Yeah, but there's flexibility in there for those coaches to be able to figure out who's the best coach for this sport, kind of, second sports and stuff like that to move around.
I know from opening Saginaw High School and Chisholm Trail High School, we had kind of similar model to this that we used, and that is a moving target. Obviously, when you get in there, I would assume that, you hire someone and, this may tag it as assistant track, but that position probably needs to be assistant basketball for the first year or something, so these are, we found out from opening the other schools, and I assume this could come true too. Some of these coaches maybe end up being asked to coach a third sport, at some juncture, because, you just, maybe we can't end up hiring all these people because of our budget or whatever it is. So, some of those coaches may be asked to pick up a third sport for a year or two, which they would be compensated for through a stipend, I'm sure. But I think what they put together looks very good compared to the opening of Saginaw and Chisholm, very comparable. But it is a moving target, and I mean, you really can't say that a lot of these things could change, but it is a target to shoot for and give you something to at least have out there in front of you.
Yes, sir. And I would add, thank you, sir. I would add that the transfer process would allow for, once with y'all's approval and consideration, the adjustments you want to make with Dr. Chadwell, whatever the final approval or product is, the athletics department and the campus administration and athletic coordinator and assistant coordinator would have some flexibility as they hire people in, and their strengths and weaknesses and experience would have some flexibility to move things around. with approval. And so it does give you that flexibility, not back you in a corner.
Yeah, I thought it looked great. Hear me. I just wanted to ask that. just
Absolutely.
After
It's flexible.
having done it a couple times, and it is, everybody's got to jump in and do another sport or two, usually at the beginning, especially those head coaches of other sports that, work out of that to do
It's a
their
big puzzle.
main sport. It is
Yes,
huge. And then you figure in the teaching fields, right? And
Yes,
that's,
sir.
One reason they're listed with specifics is because that's how they're posted. But again, in the recruitment process, just what you've said, if we see a different match, then we can make that, particularly if we're doing internal transfers, or flexibility, as Mr. Daughtry said, with coaching a third sport. So we feel like this is a good start. Just to note again, on the second to last column, we have 3 positions that could come in early, and those are the offensive and defensive coordinator, and then also the head volleyball coach / assistant athletic coordinator. So if those individuals are available prior to the beginning or the end of the year, then we could bring them in early to help complete the coaching program and also start with summer conditioning. Some of this is really making sure, even though the building's not open, we have programming that's starting, particularly in June, with new athletes coming to the school.
So you mentioned this is coaches and I guess some fine arts. I mean, I'm only seeing dance and cheer, maybe cheers under athletics. When's the other fine arts?
Yes,
And
sir.
why these fine arts? And
Glad you asked. So we have the head band director that was approved last spring. And then in working with Mr. Bell and asking kind of his vision on when he kind of wanted those other positions, these are the positions he recommended coming forward for this report. And then he wanted theater and choir and the assistant positions to come on the next report. So this was his kind of vision on how he wanted this to come forward. So this is why you see this presented tonight.
And they are interviewing right now for the band director, the head band director. So that's a process that's active. As of just today, they were doing interviews.
Is that timeline consistent with how we've done the last couple schools? We haven't run into any issues with that timing being on?
This is my first report on opening a school, but that's my general understanding as well.
In my memory of it, it's not inconsistent. We're still early enough, particularly if we're posting the job in February. That I would say probably some of those positions tend to not come early, like the band director, we would bring that individual in early to help start that program. But I think February still puts us in a timeline because we would start posting and start interviewing immediately. I'll say we have a lot of people applying without the job being open. That makes sense. I mean, we have receiving a lot of resumes and interest because they know the position will be open. So that's good. So we'll have just like with the head football position, we had a lot of applicants before we even posted. So we'll be ready to go pretty quickly.
Highly sought after jobs, all
Yep.
of these are, yes.
awesome.
And when you said that they're posted, you meant future tense, I guess, because you said when they post, they'll post like this. This is how they will go out.
Yes. So for example, I'm just pick one, head soccer assistant cross country girls. That's how it would be posted. Yep.
And so when do they have to come back in and reapply once the job's posted? How does that, if you're already getting a lot of interest, how we make sure we don't miss anybody through that process? if they're
Let
already
me
showing self-interest?
clarify. They can't actually apply for a job that doesn't exist. And so this is informal, meaning they send us resumes. So we hold those resumes and then we reach out to those individuals to say the job is now open. Usually we don't have to wait because they're looking every day. But if not, then we have this stack of individuals that we reach out to and say the job's now posted. And then they do have to post, they have to apply in our
So we've got a
system.
process.
But we do a lot of, we're constantly recruiting. So most of us in this room that we're recruiting every place. I mean, my wife recruits. We're at a restaurant. Someone says, I'm just graduating. I'm, one of our waiters, and then we're going to graduate. And I'm looking at it. She's like, oh, well, my husband. I'm like, okay. And then we start talking. I'm getting emails, and then I send it to HR. So there's a lot of informal. But in all those cases, this example I just gave is a real one, a waiter in Fort Worth. A resume came, sent it to them. And then Becky follows up and see, did the person apply? If they didn't apply, do we need to reach back out? So we do a lot of that because sometimes people actually maybe forget who all they've talked to, or they want us to reach out. They feel good about being recruited. They feel like that it makes them feel good that we've reached out to them. So we do follow up with everybody, even informal applications, if you will.
Any questions? All right, thank you. All right, it is currently 5:50 PM on December 11th. This board will now recess for dinner and then reconvene in a closed meeting pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meeting Act. Section 551.071 for the purpose of private consultation with the board's attorney. Section 551.072 for the purpose of deliberating a purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Section 551.074 for the purpose of deliberating the appointment, employment, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, or to hear a complaint or charge against an officer or employee. Section 551.076 for the purpose of deliberation regarding the deployment of specific occasions for implementation of security personnel or devices or security audits. And Section 551.0821 to discuss specific personal identifying information about a student.
You did a good job.
This is the public meeting of the Board of Education of Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School District. The board is reconvening in the public meeting on December 11th at 7 p.m. and will now consider the subject set forth in the posted agenda. Welcome to our December meeting. Happy holidays, everyone. We're glad you're here with us this evening. We have our opening ceremony from Willow Creek Elementary. Ms. Witt, you want to come on up?
Good evening. Thank you for allowing Willow Creek to do the opening ceremonies. We have some amazing Wolverines that I will introduce. First up is Hudson Neff. Hudson, come on up. Hudson's parents are Roddy and Leah Neff. He enjoys soccer, baseball, basketball, and currently football. He loves going to the water parks and likes to buy Pokemon and baseball cards. He has 3 sisters, Lakin, Carson, and Hayden. Next we have Emma Barlow. Emma is in 2nd grade. Her parents are Jared and Bethany Bowen. She enjoys basketball. She likes to play with her big black dog named Bear, and they enjoy running around and playing in the yard. And her siblings are Laverick, Cuddles, and Shepherd. Next up, we have Mariana Wesley. Mariana is a 3rd grader at Willow Creek. Her name is Whitney Beasley. She loves playing the guitar, and next year will begin playing soccer. She likes to jump on her trampoline and enjoys playing and racing with her tiny dogs. She has 2 of her own, Callie and Sean. Siblings to Matt here are Rihanna, Landon, and Raylan. Next up, we have 4th grader Eleanor Linthicum. Eddie's parents are Rick and Carla Linthicum. He enjoys playing soccer. He also loves being kind to others and eating at Chick-fil-A and visiting water parks. He loves playing toys with his German Shepherd, Axel. He has siblings Cassie and Brendan. And last but not least, 5th grader Clarabelle Favela. Clarabelle's parents are Jamie and Clara Favela. She is a part of the honor choir, our student voice committee, and playing soccer, and she loves watching Christmas movies and listening to music. She has a brother, Leo. And those are our amazing Wolverines, so we'll turn around.
Please stand and join us for the pledge to the United States flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now for the Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Please join us for a moment.
Great job. All right, moving on, we have some special recognitions. Ms. Silverman.
Good evening. So I know everyone has their eyes set for Friday and then the 2-week holiday break, but we're going to take just a minute to look ahead to January 2024. At this time, we would like to share that January is School Board Recognition Month as designated by our state governor and the Texas Association of School Boards. Our trustees volunteer their time to provide direction for the district in their service to our community, our schools, our students, and our educators. So tonight, we would like to pledge to join the statewide recognition by proclaiming January 2024 as School Board Recognition Month in Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD. This year's theme is locally elected, community connected. We encourage the community to take some time next month to thank our school board members for their dedication to our students and employees and to recognize their contributions to our district. So next month we will have our campuses will be here and they will be sharing some tokens of appreciation and some words of appreciation to you as part of our board meeting. So we appreciate you, we thank you, and we look forward to celebrating you next month.
And Mr. Bell, I think you have some holiday card artists to recognize.
Thank you, President Ring, Dr. Chadwell, members of the board. It's great to be with you this evening. As most of you know, for the past 10 years, we have featured some incredible student artwork, visual artwork, for the Eagle Mountain Saginaw holiday card, both on the cover and inside the card as well. And we have two students to recognize this evening whose artwork is on display this year. And one of the students could not be with us, but one is here, Miss Jasmine Carrillo. Jasmine, come on up if you would. And let's give her a hand. Jasmine, her artwork is featured on the cover of the card. This is yours to keep, pretty cool, huh? So this beautiful Christmas tree is Jasmine's artwork. Jasmine is here this evening with her mother, Teresa Carrillo, and her sisters. If you all want to stand and be recognized. And Jasmine is guided and taught and inspired by Miss Carly Shaw, her teacher at Saginaw High School. So Carly, we have also one of these beautifully framed cards as a keepsake for you as well. And we appreciate all you do. So if you'll stay up here, those are some extra cards. And the inside artwork of the card was crafted this year by Miss Stephanie Rota. She's a junior at Saginaw High School, and Jasmine is a senior, by the way, right? I think I failed to say that. I apologize. Stephanie is a junior. Unfortunately, she couldn't be with us here tonight, but her teacher, Miss Tara Croft, our lead art teacher at Saginaw High School, is here. Miss Croft, if you'll come up and be recognized, and we'll give you both of these for yourself and for Stephanie. Let's give them a hand. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, now we have some special introductions. Dr. Arnold?
President Ring, Dr. Chadwell, Board of Trustees, I'm very excited to present to you two amazing administrators. First, we have Destiny Womack. Destiny is the new assistant principal at Comanche Springs Elementary. She taught in the district for 5 years before becoming a math interventionist at Comanche. And she has a Bachelor of Science in Interdisciplinary Studies from UNT. She also has her Educational Leadership Master's from Texas Tech. Okay, go ahead. I'm just going to wait on the response. She is married to her husband of 11 years. They have 3 beautiful children. They're here with her tonight. Also, her mom-in-law is here, and her principal is here in support. So I'm going to get them all to stand up. We are very excited to welcome her to this new role. Yes, thank you. Next, we have Denise Ingram. Come on. And Denise joins Chisholm Ridge Elementary as an assistant principal. She retired from Chisholm Trail High School in 2019. She has 31 years of experience. She has been a dean of instruction, a high school English teacher, a middle school English teacher, an assistant principal on, I think, 3 different campuses. She holds a Bachelor of Science in English from, wait for it, The Ohio State University, and a Master of Education in Educational Administration from Texas Southern University. And Ms. Green is here to support her. Stand up, Ms. Green. Yay. We're so blessed to have you.
Right, thank you. Well, that does conclude our special recognitions as well as our opening ceremony. So if that's what you were here for, not saying you have to leave, you're welcome to stay for the whole kit and caboodle, but if that's what you're here for and want to sneak out before we move into action items, feel free to do so at this time. And while we move in, we did conclude our reports in the 5 o'clock session. So we will move on to action items. Our first is to consider a class size waiver if Ms. Eckert would like to make her way to the.
I apologize, I was saying bye to principals. Good evening, President Ring, Dr. Chadwell, Board of Trustees. I'm bringing to you tonight for your consideration a class size waiver for Lake Point Elementary 2nd grade. We submit weekly grade reports from Halfley and from the elementaries to see what our class sizes are like. And at this time, we've determined that we need waivers for the 2nd grade at Lake Point Elementary.
I make a motion to approve the submission of the pre-kindergarten through 4th grade class size waivers as presented.
Second.
Motion by Tim and a second by Ron. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? There are none. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Next, we have act on the election of members to the Board of Directors for Tarrant Appraisal District. Mr. Welch.
Thank you. Trustees, as provided in your agenda packet, TAD is holding their 2023 election for the Board of Directors to serve terms of January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2025. This year, there are 7 nominees on the ballot. EMSISD has 189 of the 5,000 votes distributed among the taxing entities in Tarrant County. Nominees with the 5 highest cumulative totals will be elected to the board. Biographical information for the nominees has been included in your packet. As the EMSISD Board of Trustees, you may make a recommendation to cast the 189 votes for one nominee or distribute them among multiple nominees and adopt the included resolution authorizing the casting of the votes. You may also choose to take no action. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
I move the board cast 189 votes for Gary Lasada for the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors and adopt a resolution authorizing the casting of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD's allocated votes for appointment on the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors.
Second.
A motion by Steve and a second by Tim. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? There are none. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Right. Moving on, we need to designate a method of procurement for Wayside Middle School replacement. Mr. Lee.
Good evening, President Ring, members of the board, Dr. Chadwell. Texas Government Code 2269.06556A specifies that a governing body of a governmental entity that considers a construction contract using a method authorized by this chapter other than competitive bidding must, before advertising, determine which method provides the best value for the government entity. The recommendation is to designate construction manager at risk as the method that provides best value for Wayside Middle School replacement.
So move.
Second.
A motion by Tim, that was Blake, right?
Yes.
And a second by Blake. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, and we think that's better than CSP just because there's so many unknown things and it'd be almost impossible to get a good bid. Is that?
Correct. There's going to be multiple phases of this project, demolition, grading, CMAR, getting a CM agent and being able to bid out those phases separately allows us to start sooner and gives us a better chance at hitting and achieve completion date as well.
Also on this specific site, we have some conditions that I'll just say are unique in terms of the floodplain and the watershed, and so we have to be very careful there. And so we're working right now with the city of Saginaw to determine what that would look like, as well as traffic control in that area. And so it's unique that way. And then, of course, unforeseen conditions in a building that's over 60 years old as we demolish it.
There's no telling what you'll find under there.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, I just want to make sure we were being conservative with our money there, that we weren't picking something that was going to end up costing us a lot more. And what I'm hearing is it won't, because of the ability to negotiate each phase and have more knowledge about what's in it.
Correct. Just like Dr. Chadwell said, there's so many unknowns, tight site, existing facility, having a CM agent work with us before everything happens. It allows us to coordinate all those things beforehand and work together to come up with a solution for all these obstacles we're going to have to overcome throughout the.
And you'll come back with a recommendation on which.
That is correct.
As we move forward. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
And proposed timeline would be, you said as we start to look at targets, I understand construction and all factors and things like that, but what's the target? What's the bullseye for completion?
Right. Bullseye for completion will be most likely start of 2026, August 2026 is when I can almost guarantee it.
Yeah, guess way out there and then you'll look good as you get it.
Right.
There you go.
That's right.
We can also, if we were able to do it sooner, the fortunate here is we could do it over a break, over a Christmas break, for example, previous to. So some of this has to do with the contractors when we go out and actually contract a job and their commitments in that process. And there'll be dollar effects in that regard as well. And now one of the elements is, of course, is the demolition of the building. And so it's possible, when you say fall 2026, you may want to clarify that we may be in the building before that, but you're talking about the completion of the whole project, correct? So the movement into the new wayside could be previous to that, but we would not have access to the tennis courts or the football field. We will have to create a temporary football field on the Bryson property and would be busing students for tennis for a portion of time, because that's exactly where the building would be demolished and the field actually has been moved. So we could be in the building earlier than that, but again, the site wouldn't be completed yet.
So there is a possibility of even 25-26 school year being in the building is what you're saying?
Yes, that Christmas break is a possibility.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Yep. Great.
Wait, I'm trying to think. So, I thought, I'm looking at a slide here. August 2025 would, let's see, projected open date, new Wayside Middle School, August 2025. Is that not still, that was from our bond presentation. Or it's one of them that I went to. Is that not accurate? Opening 2025 for Wayside?
No, it would be fall of.
It was August/fall of 2025, and that's if everything, it depends on when we actually get to start construction.
Right.
So we got to get through these hurdles with some city and also with our consultants. And that triggers the first window of Christmas break.
There are two big factors right now that we're being very careful not to commit to something. We hear a date and we go with that. Factor one is we're actually currently working with the city of Saginaw, and there's certain things that we have to come to agreement on what's required for the site. And I mentioned one with the watershed on that property, but also traffic control. So there's discussions there that can delay a project because we have to get a lot of permissions from them before we start doing work there. The other is the construction company that we work with and their ability to do everything within the timeline that we're talking about. So hopefully we'll come back and it's more positive than that, but we want to be careful we don't overpromise and have to come back and go 6 more months or another year or something like that.
Has it been drawn yet as?
We are well into the design development. Okay. So you have the schematic, it's just a bunch of boxes. Now we've actually gotten plans put together, rooms, the sizes, all that. So, I mean, we'll pick up where we left off, and it should be a pretty quick process.
The things that have not been determined, there are a few little tweaks, and in fact, Mr. Lee and I were in Marine Creek the other day, and Mr. Welch and I previous as well, identifying just a couple things, not extensive, just some things, because we do have, this facility actually has a, how is the name?
Storm shelter.
Thank you, storm shelter. I don't know why I went blank, but it has a storm shelter, which will actually be in the area where fine arts is. So the fine arts area has to be enlarged in order to contain the number of kids that would have to be in there for an event. And so we'll actually move the theater classroom into that area. And also it has to have restrooms that are accessible during an event. And so that whole section has to be redesigned. The building itself is inversed, and so right now at Marine Creek, the gym is on the right side and the academic wing's on the left side. That reverses. Tennis courts aren't exactly right behind the building like they are here. They'll actually be on the corner of Old Decatur and Bailey Boswell. Again, I mentioned the field moved. The other is just the aesthetics, so it will not be identical in terms of any of the finishes, maybe the finished construction of the shape, but actually the paint, the tile, the rock on the outside, the brick, all those things have to be finalized, and we're in that process right now of determining what we want it to look. So it'll be unique in terms of, probably more unique than our prototype with Prairie Vista and Wilkie. Those look really, really similar. These will actually have different color brick. They'll actually have, you'll know they're the same essential shell, but they'll have unique features that way. Did I miss anything, Mr. Lee? Good.
Additional discussion? All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? There are none. Motion carries 6-0. Excuse me. All right, that doesn't conclude our action items, so we will move on to routine monthly reports. Did anybody have any questions there that they needed to address? Then let's review the 24 board planning calendar. Dr. Chadwell.
Yes, this is on page 151 of your packet. Under finance, we start with budget amendment, evaluation of fund balance. That's a report we bring to you every year to evaluate that. Obviously, that'll be of special attention this year since we rounded up a deficit budget for the 23-24 budget. Also, we have an audit update. And then under action items, we have the approval of the financial audit, so our auditor will be here to provide that report. The act on 23-24 budget amendment if needed, conduct federal programs, public meeting for ESSER. We also are setting the July 24 through June 25 board meeting dates, and those are consistent with what we've done this year on those meeting dates. Approval of the 23-24 submission class size waiver if needed, and conduct the public hearing for the TAPER report. Doubtful that that will be done because right now, since the accountability system is in a lawsuit, most likely the TAPER report would be held. And so that's in your planning calendar, but most likely we will not be able to do the hearing for that. And then we'll start on approval of the calendar, approval of contract extensions for designated positions under consent agenda.
Okay. Then that brings us to the consent agenda. Do I have
We approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Steve and a second by Ron. Is there any discussion? See none, all those in favor? Any opposed? There are none. Motion carries 6-0. And so we are to board president's announcements. I will just remind everybody that you have a form in your packet to schedule some meetings with Dr. Chadwell. If you could return that to Kim this evening, that would be appreciated. Additionally, training, we have a few pieces out there. I know we have one or two that still need to finish the cybersecurity training, and we've already gotten the information on that. If you have any questions, Kim can help you with that. We will get some more information from Kim, but we have school safety and human trafficking that several of us still need to complete as well. So that's on your radar for this spring. And then just a couple announcements. I'm sure Dr. Chadwell will bring this up as well. But this Wednesday, we have holiday open house. Hope you all will be able to join us up here for that from 10 to 2:30. Come and go as you have availability. And then also for your calendars, Tuesday, January 9th is the Discovery Lab naming ceremony from 6 to 7. So get that on your calendars as well. That's all I had. Dr. Chadwell?
Yes, thank you. This last couple of weeks have been really exciting with all of the different events and activities and musicals and concerts. It's awesome. I got a concert planned to go to tomorrow night, and it's been fun, a lot of fun just seeing our students perform. Of course, we'll see students in here on Wednesday as well. So a great time of the year just to highlight our students. Also, after the break, we have the Reading Festival starting off on the January 8th. That's at all of our high schools. And so if you get to go to one of those or more, well, it's only an hour, so you'll have to choose one. But please let Dana know so we can make sure that we'd love to have you a part of that. If you want to read to some students or something like that, it's always really a lot of fun. I went to once and the student asked for my autograph, which was kind of funny. I'm like, okay. And then I signed my name, and you know what my name looks like. So they're like, what's this? It says this Loops, but I'm like, no, it's my signature. You asked for it. So it's really a fun evening though. I encourage you to do that, and they walk away with some books, and it's a lot of fun. We also have open houses starting on February 5th, middle school open house. That will be at all of our schools. And finally, February 22nd, we have the EMS Dance Showcase in the Chisholm Trail Gym. If you've not been able to see that, it's at 7 o'clock on that night. It is a lot of fun. All of our high school teams are showcased, and they do a fantastic job. So it's just really a lot of fun to go there to see our kids perform. Lastly, I hope y'all have a wonderful Christmas. This is a great time. We know some breaks aren't breaks, but Christmas is really truly a break, except for basketball. Things slow down a lot, and so I hope y'all have a safe trip, and everybody that's listening as well. It's been a really good semester, and we're looking forward to a great semester in the new year. Thank you.
Madam President, seeing there's no further business to come before this board, I make a motion we adjourn.
Second.
Marilyn's not here.
Motion by Steve, a second by Ron. We are adjourned.
That was